leaking money to illegal streamers out the side, that is less money coming into the sport, less money coming into the club, and therefore the fans are going to see a less good product on the pitch, less competitive product on the pitch. So it's the fans ultimately that are the big sufferers in this situation, the real fans, the ones who do pay. Now, things have moved on a lot since then, and as you say, it's become a really hot topic. And I think the concern is within the industry, Adrian, that bundled TV rights packages, by which we mean Sky TV paying the Premier League, let's say, or the Football League, a large chunk of money annually for the rights to broadcast those games exclusively, and then parcel those things up with some other sports and sell them to subscribers, right? So that's the whole business model.
That's the model, yeah.
How can that survive? How can Sky and other premium package sellers keep on paying those types of sums when large chunks of their target audience are accessing that content for free? Right. So this is a real big problem, and it's a tech problem as much as anything else, which is, you know, how fast can you move to keep ahead of the people who are doing it illegally, in terms of things like geo-blockers and all these different types, in terms of the police having the requisite information to be able to pursue, you know. But as I said, whereas 7 or 8 years ago, it was some pubs who, and then those pubs then getting punters to come in and pay a bit of entrance money to come into the pub to watch it. We're now looking at millions of people with their own individual fire sticks. So in reality, when you've got a police force that doesn't even have the capability of pursuing some quite serious thefts like car theft, how much resource realistically is the police going to devote to charging around the country trying to find individual people who are using an illegal fire stick? I'd say that's a bit sort of far-fetched, frankly.
Yes. So your concern is that ultimately your concern is ultimately that it could destabilize the funding model of English football, in that if the Skies, if the DAZNs, the TNTs of this world decide that actually they're leeching far too much money away to these illegal streams, that they will stop buying up big football rights packages. Do we really see that happen, though, Charlie? They're still making a lot of money out of the subscriptions, aren't they?
Well, no. That's the problem, right? So the Football League annual conference, which I attended shortly before resigning from Charlton Athletic, the US broadcasters of English TV, English football, addressed the conference and raised it as their first point. The biggest single issue facing all of us is illegal streaming, right? Now, this is a major, major issue. Now, going back onto what you've just said there, which I think is a little bubble that needs to be pricked here, which is the assumption that the paying of vast amounts of money for bundled TV rights and selling them to subscribers is an ever-increasing market which is going really well. Now, I totally get why an English football fan would think that, because we ourselves currently are somewhat isolated from what's happening elsewhere. But what's happening elsewhere is that the cannibalization of that market, and the fact that a lot of young people actually aren't paying these subscriptions, or most young people aren't paying these subscriptions anyway, because they just use YouTube for all of their consumption, whatever it might be, is meaning that there's very significant downward pressures on this market already. And you can see this in French football, where they've really struggled to get their TV rights away at all. Now, they ended up doing a deal with DAZN, and I think we might want to revisit this in a bit more detail. But the bottom line is that DAZN didn't pay that much for the rights. And then you've looked at the number of subscriptions that they've sold off the back of the rights since, and it becomes clear that despite not having paid all that much for the rights, they paid twice as much as they should have done, looking at the numbers. So that's a story for another day. The fact that the bundled TV rights package is on its way out gradually, right? And we'll come back onto the numbers behind that. You know, by gradually, we're talking about 5-10 years, not 5 months, 10 months. But this piracy is going to accelerate that. It's going to accelerate that process and could potentially bring it forward quite quickly, unless we're very, very careful about it, even if we are able to be very, very careful about it. So this is a big issue. This is a really, really big issue. And there's a reason why it's hit the Financial Times rather than the sports pages. It's because this is causing real pain at the higher levels of the broadcast world. And that pain will be visited down when it comes to the next negotiation of TV rights packages.
We'll talk about that in more detail on another week, Charlie, for sure. Absolutely.